welcome to Doors and Corners, a sci-fi and fantasy film commentary podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Zach. And every Friday we sit down and watch a science fiction or fantasy film and give our 2 cents on its quality, production, story, and trivia.
We watch the film together, but without sounds or visuals provided to avoid copyright issues. But if you do have access, we encourage you to join us and follow along.
Here, we like to keep things casual, and there may be discussions of spoilers or sensitive materials or language. But we do try and keep things clean and family-friendly. Ultimately, the goal of this podcast is to create the experience of us all sitting down and watching this movie together.
So get ready to hit that play button, because we're about to get started.
Damn doors and corners, I mean, that's where they get you.
Welcome back to Doors and Corners. I'm Brian.
I'm Zach. And I have a question for you, Brian.
Oh, already? Wow. Okay, go for it.
Very important question. Yes, very important question. What do you get when you combine an unprepared director, tons of studio interference, and geopolitical pressure and essentially backdoor financing?
I think you get the Meg, right?
When you combine all those. Similar but worse. You get the movie Pacific Rim Uprising.
Yes. I was like, I gotta think of a different movie. Yes, Pacific Rim Uprising.
Meg was fun. Yeah. I liked Meg.
Well, Meg knew what it was. Jason Statham, for all of his good and bad, is very self-aware. He knows exactly who he is, what kind of movie he makes, and just rolls with it. And you either are there for it or you're not. This movie, to the best of my knowledge, had no self-awareness whatsoever of what it actually was. And in case you guys hadn't caught this, we are doing Pacific Rim Uprising. Yeah, I'm sure the title of this probably gave that away. The not quite as good is really polite, quite awful follow-up to the excellent original film that we watched last week is what we're watching tonight. So go ahead, Zach. Give us the highlights of your thoughts.
Pacific Rim Uprising is the sequel to Pacific Rim, obviously. Pacific Rim, as I stated last week, in my opinion, can be described as a masterpiece of schlock. Like, it knew what it was, and it didn't try and be some sort of high-minded piece of amazing Scorsese cinema. It just wanted to be fun and cool and do fun and cool things, and it did. And it did in such a way that I can only describe it as a masterpiece of its kind. And then that being said, they come out here with Pacific Rim Uprising. They had this thing that could have been a franchise on their hand, and they come out with this turd. Not even a polished turd, just a turd of a movie.
I feel like somebody
this movie
rubbed it a little bit. Just a little bit.
Massaged it, just a little bit.
Definitely didn't polish it.
This movie is a cross between Godzilla versus Kong and a Transformers movie.
Yes.
Brian, can we just switch right now? Let's watch something better. Let's watch Black Widow. Let's watch Joss Whedon's Justice League. Okay? Let's watch The Spirit, Brian. The Spirit.
Oh gosh, that's the Rodriguez one, right? It was supposedly like Sin City, but way worse. I never saw it.
Oh yeah, way worse. And I don't even like Sin City. This movie is just, it takes everything that the first one created and makes it worse.
No, but there's a ninja robot, dude. He's got 2 blue swords. It's awesome.
Ninjas. Freaking ninjas.
And he's got
for those of you who don't
Camaro
know.
hot orange paint job, or if it's hot orange or a red or somewhere in the it's somewhere in that spectrum. But he's absolutely an action figure.
A lot of things in this movie were on the spectrum.
He's just like an action figure, He's exactly how in my mind an action figure moved when I was 5. He's just doing a lot of flips.
Oh, that's a really good way of putting it. In fact, there's something in here that reminds me so much of Power Rangers.
Oh,
but in a bad way.
Well, so my daughter was the daughter who's not been on the podcast, my youngest daughter, Ashlyn. She was watching the end of this with me, and we both when with the not the Megazord, but when Rita Repulsa, does like the grow thing. Megazord. No, but like the bad guy. Whenever the bad guy would always grow, because that was every single episode, right? That's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You get Zords, and he gets bigger, and you got to combine them. It's the thing. Anyways, immediately I was just like, when the three kaiju come together, and spoilers if anybody's curious, comes together with the little scarab things. And,
fusion bots, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And it's just like, it's the Power Rangers. Now the Jaegers just need to combine into one big Jaeger. I mean, and we're there. I mean, just do Voltron, but worse.
Yeah. Nothing in this movie makes sense. The plot doesn't make sense. The characters don't make sense. The first 3 lines of dialogue, okay, if I recall correctly, we'll find out in a minute. The first 3 lines of dialogue and the way that they combine make no sense. It's along the lines of like, 10 years ago, this thing happened. The world has recovered. But some places were harder hit than others and need to like, and they're barely clinging to life, scrapping to survive. And it's like, you just said the world had recovered. Like, not is recovering. Like, it's a contradiction in the first 3 lines of dialogue in the entire movie.
So, who wrote this script,
Just
and what
listen.
other credits do they have? I mean, if we're gonna, I'm curious. Actually, I don't know this. You are more prepared for this than I am. If anybody's curious, I have watched this movie once. That is my entirety of preparation. That and just lots of opinions and thoughts and ideas. That's all I got tonight. So I'm leaning on Zach a little bit here, but yeah, who wrote this thing, and what else did they write in their life of note?
Okay, so it went through a couple of different people.
All right.
Some ideas actually did come from the original director, Guillermo del Toro, so he does get a writing credit. However, the other writers there are 3 in particular. One is the director, Stephen S. DeKnight, who I would have expected better from. And then I looked at his credits and went, oh, I guess the Netflix Daredevil was actually just a fluke. Stephen S. DeKnight was the director. He has a writing credit, as does a woman by the name of Emily Carmichael and another woman by the name of Kira Snyder. Emily Carmichael is responsible for the utter abomination that is Jurassic World Dominion.
Ooh.
And then Kira Snyder is primarily known for her work as producer, and writer for the shows The 100. She only did a few episodes of that, but they were some of the first episodes, like just kind of scattered throughout. Which, if you've ever seen that show, started strong, nosedive into utter bullshit. Pacific Rim Uprising, and several episodes of The Handmaid's Tale, which a lot of people out there really love The Handmaid's Tale. I despise The Handmaid's Tale.
Well, you would, because you're a man.
A lot of people say it. Exactly, it's because I'm a man, and it's definitely not because they took things that happen to women that are highly unfortunate throughout history over the course of hundreds and hundreds of years and combined them all to be taking place at the same time in a single time period that creates a compound victimhood that has never existed in actual humanity, and then said, this is what people want to do to you.
But I thought that's what
it's a complete farce.
Yeah. Never mind. I'm going to avoid this one because I'm completely with you on this, but man. Yeah.
So I won't go anywhere near that one anymore. I'll just say that. But either way, like, DeKnight, Stephen S. DeKnight, this guy is responsible for the Daredevil TV show. He's the showrunner on Netflix Daredevil. Okay?
That was before this, though, right?
Yeah, just before this.
Really?
Probably the reason that he got this. Yeah.
Was just the first season of Daredevil before this, or all 3?
It would have been the first 2.
Okay.
I believe that the third one was coming around this time. But for those of you who don't know, I actually consider the first season of Netflix Daredevil that he was showrunner of perhaps the single greatest adaptation of a comic book superhero ever put on film. It's amazing. I dare say it approaches perfection with some small caveats, such as his costume and the final fight scene at the end of the season. But Stephen S. Tonight, he started on the show Angel, which I have a lot of nostalgia for, but I can't sit there and say is a good show. It does have some absolutely incredible character development, mind you. But you also just can't sit there and say that it's a great show. As well as Smallville. Smallville, he was the supervising producer for 66 episodes of Smallville.
Really?
Which I actually realized looking at.
I was going to say that shows the definition of a mixed bag.
Yeah, it's one of the perfect examples of the 1/3 rule of science fiction fantasy. 1/3's going to be like great to like really good. 1/3 is going to be acceptable, and 1/3 is going to be garbage. And this is true of things that I love, like Star Trek Next Generation as well. But I realized in looking at this that I have seen virtually everything that Stephen S. Tonight has done, with the exception of 2. Well, actually, when it comes to writing, I have seen everything that he has done, with the exception of 1, which is something from the late 90s, early 2000s called Undressed. But Buffy the Vampire Slayer he wrote for Angel, he wrote for Smallville, Joss Whedon's Dollhouse. Then he goes on to Spartacus, that
was a Showtime thing,
the
right?
Stars series.
Oh, Stars. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, which is just violence and porn.
Isn't that this
like
the show
you take
where like
the sexuality?
Yeah, isn't that the show where like the lead star like died of something after the first season? Remember that right?
Yeah, he died of cancer.
Okay.
I want to say brain cancer, and
Yeah.
he was an incredibly talented actor. Spartacus is actually like a if you coming at it from like an acting and production standpoint, it is a good show. I would never morally recommend it to anybody because it's literally the entire point of it is porn and blood.
Yeah.
And blood porn. That's the whole show. And then you get to Daredevil, and like, ooh, Daredevil. And then you get to Pacific Rim, Uprising. Oh no. And then he did the Netflix TV show Jupiter's Legacy, which was very much greenlit in the wake of stuff like The Boys, which is another show that I despise. And is very much just kind of this very cynical, dark version of the superhero genre, essentially, that only lasted for 1 season. And I'm just realizing that, man, he did really good with Daredevil, but that was it.
Well,
that was his one great thing.
It does tell you a lot of. We could talk about this at length. We should get to the movie here soon. A lot of success has to do with other factors, and with the right creative team, you can kind of overcome. And then there are other times where one guy is a big enough deal to kind of just hold something together and make it amazing. But I always think that when there's something like that, like he's and again, we'll get into this. You feel stronger about this movie than I do, although I have a very quickly formed opinion about it. I do, wonder again about some of the external pressures you alluded to earlier, and with working with Joss, Joss is a really, for every account, he's a very controlling guy. So I mean, he had a lot of say in a lot of his stuff. So I wonder how much he had to do with that. And I feel like with you, I enjoy very much basically every show Joss did, but they have their ups and downs, but I enjoy them. And I would agree.
Didn't like Dollhouse.
I thought the concept was good. I didn't like the main actress, the one who plays what's her face in Buffy, and she's the other Slayer.
Elijah Dushku.
Yeah. She's just always been annoying. But what's his name? Pinkett, the guy. He was in Battlestar also as Hilo. Tiamat Pinkett. I'm so
Oh,
I feel horrible.
that's
I'm
right. He
butchering
was
his name.
in that show. I
Yo,
just watched an episode of Criminal Minds with him in it last
yeah,
night. Yeah, I don't
he
remember
was.
him in that show at all.
Oh no, he was like the second lead. He was a big deal on that show.
I know that there was a male second lead. I just don't remember what they looked like.
it was him, and he was. I liked him very much. He's somebody who I enjoyed. I thought he was great in Battlestar. He has a real kind of presence about him. Not a lot of range, but what he does
Yeah.
what he does is really good. Anyways,
No, he doesn't.
well, I mean, to be fair, again, when you're comparing any actor against, the standards that have been set by the great actors of, the last 70 years of movie making, 80, 90 years of movie making, depending on how far you want to go back, the bar is really high. And so being just a solid actor, something that most of us could never do is, still looks just like, all right, compared to, what's your standard? Yeah. Anyways, I do think with Daredevil, I wonder, how much, because I know, wasn't David S. Goyer a big part of that show also, or am I thinking of somebody different? Another guy that's done a lot of comic book stuff. Oh gosh, no, it's not David S. Goyer. It's one of the other ones. There was somebody else.
Drew Goddard.
Drew Goddard. I'm like, it's okay.
It is Drew Goddard. Yeah.
Yeah, Drew Goddard. I mean,
yeah, because he wrote a lot of that, and he also worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel also.
Well, and he's another one with very,
he also did,
very hit or miss.
The beginning of Lost, Cabin in the Woods, The Martian.
Yeah, he's got his good stuff. Is like, so that's where you wonder with that if how much, you never know, right? Behind the scenes, depending on whatever people's titles are, and then that's like, I know directors get a lot of credit for things that they should get partially credit for, but like we could rant on this for a while. How much the cinematographer matters for a movie, and how much the production designer matters for a movie, and how much your when you have an actor who's also like very influential in improv and being a creative force in the process. Or the other big one would be obviously your writers. And some writers write their script, turn it in, and then never on set. And other writers are very involved constantly. And so it's just, there's nuance to what makes something good or not. And, this is one of those situations where I would imagine that he's not a talentless guy. I mean, he's obviously been involved in some stuff that is genuinely good. But that maybe when he's not with other key people in the process, that he just did not have what was needed to make up for those areas where this movie obviously fell short.
Yeah. I also just don't think that this guy was ready to direct a major multi-million-dollar franchise starting motion picture. I don't think he was ready for it, and I think that it shows. He obviously got pushed around by the studio. This is Universal and Legendary. And as this was happening, Legendary was bought by a Chinese company. And oh my goodness, does that show. This was during that period around the time of like Iron Man 3 and Transformers 5 and several other movies that I can't think of immediately off the top of my head, where they were like trying to kind of cater to the Chinese audience, which makes sense for this movie because the Chinese audience was pretty much the entire reason why the movie was a financial success.
Yeah.
The original Pacific Rim.
Well, and this was,
and
I mean, the MCU was riding high. Like, Chinese attendance was a massive part of the success for a lot of these movies. Yeah. It's funny, we were talking about that we mentioned the Meg earlier, and it also was a big part of that whole, yeah. Chinese
There's actually another cut of Iron Man 3 that's like specifically for the Chinese audiences. It adds like a little subplot about China. But that was so obvious in this movie that it's almost like it brings down the story. Like the hero of this story at the end of the day is a giant Chinese corporation. Narratively speaking, the hero is a giant Chinese corporation.
Even though they're also manipulated into creating the problem.
That's so weird, especially in like modern America, to be thinking about like, oh yes, the good guys are going to be the corporations. Like, it's so narratively dissonant for its audience. There was no chance that this movie was going to be a success.
Yeah, not well, at least not in America. And then I actually don't think was this movie even very successful overseas.
Nope.
Okay.
Everybody knew that Guillermo del Toro was gone.
Nobody cared because this was.
Nobody cared.
I mean, 290 million. I mean, people went to see it, but definitely not because we were just. I mean, it was about 110 short of the first movie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
but much more expensive.
Yeah. I thought that was him. It took me a second to remember. Sorry, Scott Eastwood. Barely has he looks so much like his dad. It's like weird. I guess it's not weird. It's not weird that he looks like his dad because I mean a lot of but I think him and Wyatt Russell. We're kind of starting to see some of those legacy. These sons of just legendary actors from the 70s and 80s and 90s that are starting to kind of make a few inroads here and there.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Scott Eastwood looks like Clint Eastwood if somebody stepped on Clint Eastwood.
Well, he's
not an insult to Scott Eastwood. He's stockier.
Stepped on that way. I thought you meant like he somehow. Yes, he's not as tall, but he's. I mean, he's. Are you
thinking like kinky step on?
He's a good looking guy.
Oh, he is. No, quite.
All right.
Anyway,
we should get
I'm
into
ready
this.
to begin this thing.
Yes, but to say
we have are as follows.
We have a
Pacific.
Go ahead. I'm going to shut up now.
Pacific Rim Uprising, 2018. That is 5 years after the original because of the absolute production hell that this thing went through. PG-13, 1 hour and 51 minutes too long. Directed by Stephen S. DeKnight. And we have starring John Boyega, Scott Eastwood, Kaylee Spaney, Bern Gorman, Charlie Day, Chan Jing, and that's about it.
We got the other scientists back too.
Any of the other names? Yes, we did. Bern Gorman.
Yes, I like him. Smaller part in this one, but maybe not smaller, but like he has a pivotal role. I'm glad they gave him something important to do. Although the plot device that he puts into play is ridiculous, and we'll talk about it when we get there. It's just so stupid. It's so stupid. It just it's not just like it's not logical. It's like the whatever the opposite is on nitro.
Illogical?
Yes. But like not the Spock version of illogical. This is like the really, really junk Irishman version of illogical.
Oh, Star Wars logic.
I like it.
Ready to go?
All right, we're going to hit that play button in 3, 2, 1, go.
Yay.
Dramatic theme is playing. Did you know that? That's what the subtitles just told me.
Oh,
that
wow.
Is dramatic.
Yep. Somebody pointed this to me. We have this really digital kind of neon Universal opening. Does that have anything to do with the movie whatsoever?
I mean, other than
is there like a it's not very digital neon, is it?
No, the first movie was. I think they're trying to make you think like, see, the first movie we kind of pay attention. This movie does like its holograms though, so the same thing here with Legendary. The same thing
yeah,
with
very
Legendary.
much so.
It's all hologrammy, all neon-y. And then
this
it turns
so many
blue.
holograms.
With the they did the blue with like the blue nebula thing behind it there too. My Generation. There you go. Oh,
Born into War.
They start with the worst shot in the first movie.
Yeah, the F-15s. Giant monsters.
22s.
Okay, so it's not the first 3 lines of dialogue. So one of the things that came from Guillermo del Toro was the idea of using the estranged son of Stryker Pentecost. They were going to bring back the character from the first one, Raleigh. However, he was doing King Arthur, the Legend of the Sword, with the guy who did the Sherlock Holmes movies. What's his name?
Guy Ritchie.
Guy Ritchie.
Yep.
Which is not a great movie, unfortunately. I wanted it to be so badly.
Oh, I hate this. Like this intro is just like, I don't know, just like the pool party. Just
Yeah.
immediately is like a weird vibe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the words are covered. Yeah, the world is still picking up the pieces. Like, most of the world is recovered, but the world is still picking up the pieces. And they're struggling to survive, but he's having this giant party with tons of alcohol and kind of like living high. Like, it doesn't make sense. I remember listening to it and just going like, what the hell?
The crappy
Yeah,
apartments.
so-
It's like a joke. And see, like he's trading here for Captain Crunch and sriracha and stuff. You know, Oreos. Yeah, look at this. Oh,
And an Oscar. Like, how does this barter system work? And then another thing about this is that it doesn't mean anything to the rest of the movie.
no, it doesn't mean
When does
anything.
his criminal background and all this smuggling stuff come up again?
No. Well, and even all this setup, it's. I'm sure that on page it's like, oh, see, this is character building. We're establishing his character and his backstory, and like we're giving him depth and meaning. But that only matters if that turns into something as it comes on.
Mm.
And yeah, you're right. You could cut all of this out and just start with him arriving at the, what do they call it, the Shatter Dome, and the movie wouldn't change at all, not in the tiny least.
Yeah.
The only thing is you'd have to be like, you'd have to explain where Scrapper comes from at the very end, which you could do at about 10 seconds of dialogue.
Yeah. It's like you have a lot of these technobabble going on. This actor.
Yeah. Oh, he's been on stuff. Also, are they the inside of a Jaeger here? Because if they are,
they're inside of a Jaeger.
This is the worst set for the inside of a Jaeger ever, because he like running through this whole thing. It's just like, it looks like the leftovers of like a 90s like sci-fi ship set that they're inside of.
I was literally thinking that. And did you notice just kind of how bad the ADR is on this guy?
Yeah, it's not great.
Like, John Boyega's is fine, but this guy's is not. It's like there's just something really weird about it. He was on the show The Expanse. He was excellent through the first 2 seasons, I think.
Yeah, that's right. He was like the Avalosara's kind of like right hand guy, would take care of stuff for her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. His kind of her dirty.
Yeah.
Dirty hands.
And again, none of this matters again. Yeah. Like, nothing here matters.
And there's very little action at the beginning, Well,
and
we don't.
This is also
very
for like
half of the movie.
Yeah. Well, this is also very much the going for like the jokey, quippy action. Where it's like you got to throw a joke in every chance you get. When he gets away with something, he's got to stop and smile. It's somebody taking all the worst notes from the MCU about like how you create action.
Yeah. This feels like modern MCU, to be honest. This feels like one of their TV shows.
Well, they've taken their own worst notes. That's the thing.
Yeah. Because I was thinking of like, this looks like it could be out of any Transformers movie. The lighting, the way that it's shot, the kind of quippy thing to it.
Well, this especially feels like it could be when
like this.
Like the Transformer movies, where when Mark Wahlberg finally got involved, I feel like even more so. Where it just gets even more. Not that the second and third one are amazing, but like they just kept getting worse.
Yeah, just so much more like nonsensical.
What? Okay, and then of course like the. It's just the quips, everything. It's pointless, and of course they've got to show you that they missed the dialogue on the ground, and this whole thing. I wonder if they were trying to. No, I'm not going to give them the credit of making them think that somehow they were. What's the word? Foreshadowing here when she makes the jump towards the Jaeger at the very end.
Yeah, I could see that.
And then of course we're got to do the
sequences
fall
of
gag.
peril like this are always strange to me. because you have a lot of these things where you'll have action sequences where they add in kind of superfluous peril that doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But it like kind of it helps to increase the tension. It helps to make you go like edge of your seat. In this movie, there is a lot of extemporaneous peril that doesn't increase tension. It doesn't make anything interesting. And it's really strange to me. Like, genuinely bizarre. So,
Hmm.
I don't know.
I also want to know.
That's one of my big pet peeves about action movies, though.
Yeah, and I know again. We talked about this last week. I know these movies aren't, even the first one's not meant to like make logical sense, but it still made more sense than this. And I just can't help but ask, like, how did this girl build a Jaeger? Like, how? I don't see cranes around. I don't see like the machinery. Like, how do you assemble it and just make it physically put something that big and complicated together? And then we're about to get to the movement in this movie, which I think is just it's so bad. The there's all of the weight is gone. The square cube law is just gone. What's that?
Yeah, all of the weight of moving. Oh, I was making a poop joke. So this whole movie is a movement.
There's like one or two spots where they kind of tried. You could tell, but overall, it's just like physics are just not a thing in this movie.
No. And that's what really made the previous ones stand apart, was that it, despite being obviously fantastical in how the world should work logistically, it still tried to keep an essence of physics.
Well, it felt grounded. As insane as it all was, it still felt like this could be a real thing. As stupid as it was, unlike any kind of logical military response, it still felt like this is possible somehow, or like this could exist.
Mm-hmm. They removed the whole thing of drift compatibility.
Oh yeah,
quite a bit. That was such a huge thing in the first one.
They have one little scene where they kind of try to, but really they make it sound like anybody has kind of a shot. Like it's just like, it's just we might be compatible, and like when there's no big payoff when they drift together at the end of this. There's also the trope, which I hate, which is all of the students are just like great all of a sudden. Like obviously there's still some hits taken, but the final fight, they've done nothing to show you that these students are actually, I don't know. So there's just they jump a lot of they just jump over a lot of plot development and the work that I think is important to making you invest in characters, because all of them are just kind of quippy idiots who just magically all of a sudden like have the skills needed to make the plot happen in the third act.
I personally believe that the writers should have, like, they have this idea of this kid coming in who's supposed to be their next great savior, right? And it's John Boyega's character, Jake Pentecost. And they should have read like Ender's Game in how to do that. Like you said, they should have begun it with him entering the Shatterdome. And I don't know.
And they also like
I could see ways to write this movie so differently.
Yeah. Well, and even with him, they don't actually really show him. Like he's not the great savior. It's not like he comes up with the idea that really saves everything. He doesn't have some like moment that really. Like she is the closest thing that you actually get to a prodigy, which I'm fine with. Again, that she's kind of more the prodigy. He's just really connective tissue.
Mm-hmm.
But other than being connective tissue to the first movie, character-wise, he doesn't have any real purpose to play other than just being the main character.
Yeah, agreed. Slow motion. Yeah. They also start using slow motion in this movie in a really weird way. I do like the design of the Jaegers in this thing, and the monsters even, but the Jaegers do look good. Also, so this Jaeger here, Ajax, Why are they still using it? There hasn't been any kaiju for 10 years.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it just like a cop? You know?
Well, it
And
is.
like one of the first things in
It's yeah no well the premise again, if it had been 10 years, if it really been this long, human beings would not have kept this program going, because that's, I mean, again, we don't do that. We don't continue to pay for things unless, well, okay, the exception is, and this is totally realistic, the exception would be if the right company found ways to manipulate continuing to make money by keeping it alive.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I could see them writing something in there about how, like, oh, we know that the kaiju are going to come back, so we keep the force constantly going and updated and ready and be able to show off our power with it, X, Y, and Z. But that's not really established.
yeah, but Jaegers make no sense as just like patrols. I mean, I do get well, they kind of said, okay, I'm gonna give them like 5% credit here. Excuse me. They did say that other people are continuing to try to build Jaegers, that it's kind of the new weapons race, right? And so if you were trying to
Okay,
make
yeah,
sure
yeah.
that you could counter Jaegers being produced and trying to be, created and manned by terrorists or whatever, that the best counter would be your better Jaegers. So, but again, they don't explore that. I mean, it's like one dialogue, line that's thrown away, one line of dialogue that's thrown away there at the beginning, and never really. There's nothing maintained about like why you would maintain it around this area, or just again find a way to show how the world has like shifted. Like this whole conversation. Sorry, I totally changed my own mind. I hate this. The way it's staged is jumping back and forth between them, and it's so like we're just trying so hard to be quippy and funny and edgy at the same time. It just, again, it reeks of somebody who took all the worst notes for why the MCU is popular.
And then the question is also what's changed in the future so much that they have co-ed adult juvenile mixed jail cells?
Yeah, this really
Because
is
that
like
just seems like a really bad idea to me.
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like it's
I blame. I'll give credit for that observation to CinemaSins because I wouldn't have thought of that. But when you do think about it, it gets real bad real
yeah.
fast.
That's where, on one hand, are you like, is this still kind of some
Yeah.
post-apocalyptic thing? Because they're showing this place like it's like a rundown post-apocalyptic crap fest of a world. But then it's like, no, everything's like going great. We're like rebuilding the cities. Things are, all this technology. Like the world would be, on one hand, to be awesome. But then it's really shown to be kind of a bad place to live.
So are you saying that they've turned the west coast of California into like West Africa?
Maybe.
I mean, we. It's not like we don't have these absolute bombed out shitholes that actually exist. You know.
I knew we were going to go with that. And I'm like, I don't live in California anymore, so that'd be nice. Oh, gosh.
And here we have the return of the first character from the legacy character, you could call him, Mako Mori, where she's actually playing her own age now.
And I actually really hate how
And-
it's used, because she's just used as a plot device to help motivate the main character.
Mm-hmm. Which is like the opposite of what she was in the last one.
Yeah. She's just hologram to me. Is that just like supposed to, I don't know. I can't. It's just quippy. Okay, I do kind of like the tiny little map in the left-hand corner that shows you where this place is.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. One of the things about this movie that's a little strange to me is that it's so bright.
Oh, it's very, yeah. Is there any scenes at night involving
it's
Jaegers?
so brightly lit. It's, I don't think so. Yeah.
Valor
it
Omega.
says just a cadet, but all the cadets are wearing the insignia of like warrant officers.
I love this. Like drops it and then
I don't
just
know
like
about that.
dump. Sorry, I just.
So, stuff like that. That's not terrible. Like I said, I'm willing to concede some things, but as a whole, I can never forgive this movie.
Yeah. So was he just doing PT? Because he's shown to be a real stickler about being in uniform and following the rules, like for the entire rest of the movie. Yet here he shows up in just like a t-shirt and kind of chilling out. So I'm assuming he was doing PT.
What are you? There's no character inconsistency in this film. What are you talking about?
I'm just pointing stuff out. Again, I just watched this for the first time, so I am very. I'm sorry, everybody. I am very fresh here. I know you're just teasing me, but oh goodness, I love that they have. Yeah, he's like wearing a jumpsuit tied around. I don't like that. Titan Redeemer. Is that a Titan Bracer Phoenix?
Who names these things?
Oh, it's the one with the chest guns. That's right.
Saber Athena.
Okay, kids would love Saber Athena because she has sabers.
Yeah. She does. And Athena's a pretty cool name.
Gypsy. Drop that like it's just an important.
Gypsy Avenger is not a terrible name.
No, it's not. But I do think that it's one of the more boring designs out of all the Jaegers. There's not a the head isn't as distinct, and it doesn't have the like on the back, the shoulders, the back of the head, kind of like the armor that kind of goes up, like the shock absorber or whatever that was supposed to be. They're just a little less. It looks like the most generic looking Jaeger to me in this movie.
It's too. I agree. It's too slick.
Yeah.
Yeah, way too slick. And why are they practicing that kind of stuff in the middle of the barracks?
So, like this kid, he was famous for doing like Disney shows, right? He was like in a bunch of the like the Disney live action stuff in the 2000s. The Indian kid here.
Who?
He was the one fighting there. Because my kids were the right age. They watched a bunch of these like Lizzie Madison and Bunked and stuff like that, like the Disney Plus, back in the day, the Disney Channel shows. He was big in those. He did seasons and seasons of those shows. He was like always the really smart kid. What's I'll point him out here in a second. I see
that he was on one show called Jesse for like 100 episodes.
The one on the right.
But other than that, Bunked. Yeah, Bunked.
Yeah. Anyways, he was.
Right. Yeah, I have no idea who this kid is. I am totally outside of that world.
Oh no, you should be. That would be weird if you were if you weren't. But I had young kids at that point, so. This too, like, okay, so this whole rivalry here they kind of established with this, this chip on her shoulder gal. They don't really take this anywhere interesting. They don't resolve it in an interesting way, and they're just the cadets are just flat in a lot of ways. Like they try here, like I feel like they kind of try to give her a little bit of a Romanov, kind of vibe to her, but it just doesn't work.
I agree because like I didn't even think about her really. She was just angry person. She's angry and annoying, and she has just kind of this sudden like respect turn later that's not earned at all. And then in looking at it, I was like, oh my gosh, she was actually one of my favorite parts of the show Ahsoka. Okay, she was the evil girl.
Oh yeah,
not quite Sith. She was the apprentice Shin Hati. And she was really good. She had this like intensity to her that was kind of believable, for as believable as any of those characters are under the direction of Dave Filoni. Like him creatively, his directing is a little bit too Kurosawa for me. But yeah, it's she was good.
Yeah.
She had like the vulnerability, but yeah. And then you have the simulator here. Like, ooh, we finally get some action. There are some kaiju. This is great. And then, it's all fake.
But the thing is, they could have
I'm not a
used
fan
this
of
though. They could have.
that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I don't mind training sequences, and they could have done, like I said, if they had cut out all the beginning and they had spent some more time developing these cadets in a training situation, they could have done two things. They could have built character. They could have built up these cadets. They could have shown you strengths and weaknesses. They could have shown you, interactions, kind of who gets along better with who and begrudging respect. And they could have developed these kids and given you some cool little action scenes and like shown you some of the development of like, we have this data on Jaegers from 10 years ago, but sorry, not Jaegers. We have this data from 10-year-old kaijus, and this is the new Jaeger tech that has kind of helped, be a solution that they didn't have back when we fought them last. I mean, you could do so much with training in this movie, where you could develop character, give action, develop the world, showcase what's made the Jaegers better now. I mean, there's so much you could do with training if you did it correctly.
Oh yeah, my thought during that scene actually was like, that's where I would have begun the movie. I would have Star Trek 2'd this thing. So you begin. You don't know it's a simulation. You've got them. They're fighting this thing. It's tough. One of the other Jaegers goes down. It's desperate. And then they're taken down, and you find out that there are a bunch of simulators that they were all going together. And you'd be able to perfectly tie in some quick expositional dialogue of like, it's just like one of the cadets being like, we haven't seen any actual kaiju in 10 years. And being kind of like frustrated about it and thinking that they're not even going to be useful and blah, blah, blah. And then somebody else will bring up like, well, there's all the other people out there building Jaegers. We got to keep our Jaegers up to snuff. And then somebody else is like, no, it's because they're going to come back, and you'd be able to just do it really fast and people would be able to catch it. The audience would be able to understand it. And then all of a sudden, they're being introduced to their new training officer, and it's Jake Pentecost. But he's, they're all like in awe, and then they realize that he's a dick, and he's like a street kid.
You could have absolutely had him. You could have told this and filled in about his personality and about kind of just the direction that he went. Yeah, in this setting, it absolutely would have been more effective, and you could have paced it better. You could have had more action. You could have, and I said, if you had decided we want the main pilots, because there's a total good way to go about saying that the main pilot characters, the ones we want you to invest in, they're going to be cadets. They're going to be an untrained group, and the whole big last battle is going to be this real coming together of these kids who weren't ready, who had to step up, and this is their story. Like, there's a version of that on paper that could work really, really well, and even in the film that could work well. But they just this movie is nothing but a bunch of half-baked ideas and poorly taken notes from other better made films.
Yeah, that's my thing, is that because they took a whole bunch of notes from Guillermo del Toro himself. There's a whole bunch of parts of this movie that come from Guillermo del Toro, including, like, he was planning from the inception of the first movie that if he got to do a sequel, that he would be making Charlie Day's character, introduced here. He's the bad guy. He's the actual villain, and he wanted to build that up because of the drifting with kaiju brains, which they do in kind of a weirdly erotic manner in this one that
That's a
I'm
weird
not
scene.
totally comfortable with. It's a weird scene. I think that's an interesting idea. Do you know why Guillermo del Toro didn't direct this movie?
Wasn't he in the middle of something else? Or I feel like I've heard it, but I don't know. So
he was.
Lay it on me.
There kept being delays, mostly because Legendary got bought out by this Chinese company. And he was like, I really want to do this sequel, because he really enjoyed doing Hellboy 2. He wanted to do more sequels, rare for a director of his type. He wanted to do more sequels. Here's the weird thing. This is according to an interview he was on. So take it with a grain of salt. This is what he says, is that he wanted to work on Shape of Water, and they were going to film this, and they just needed to book the sound studios to be next to each other in Toronto so he could do both of the movies at the same time. and he wanted to do it, and he was into it, and he was just like, "Oh, this is gonna be freaking great." And they missed the deadline to book the sound studios by like 2 hours because somebody forgot. And once that happened, he's like, "I can't do it."
That really?
Like, oops.
Okay, that seems.
Yeah. Like he says that it was the booking of that soundstage that made him have to drop out because that's a huge part of pre-production. Booking all the sound stages and everything.
Oh
like that.
yeah, it makes sense. It seems like it. My immediate thought is there are people who have the kind of influence that if that was going to disrupt such a massive part of why the movie would have worked, that would have been fixed by people that have the influence and finances to do that.
Well, you have to consider who else might be renting a soundstage. If they were renting it for Star Wars or a Marvel movie,
Yeah,
this wasn't going to have a chance.
it's true, I guess.
Yeah. So, just a kind of a random little anecdote there.
Yeah,
Well,
interesting.
we have the characters again.
Yes.
The two characters back from the first movie, Herman and Newton, and they're bringing in this concept of drones. Was like drone automation of previously human-run things a big? It was really big around that time, right? I'm mostly thinking of like Iron Man 2 and stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, and Iron Man 3, that was a big part of it. I mean, he was remote controlling all kinds, that was a thing. And, I mean, drones just were, growing, and they still are in popular fiction. This is an odd reference for a movie podcast, but there were like 2 or 3 different near future Call of Duty games that all used drones heavily in their storytelling around this time. So it was it's definitely a topic that was coming up more and more in this era.
Yeah. And here we have the intro. Well, previously we already passed it. My bad on that. The introduction of Li Wen Chao. And she's played by a rather prominent Chinese actress by the name of Tian Jing. And she's been in a number of American things. She was in Kong Skull Island. I want to say that she was in... No, she wasn't in Mulan. But she's been in some Western movies, but she's a pretty big actress in China.
Okay.
And she's the CEO, which you just have evil CEO vibes from this lady the entire time.
Oh, yeah.
And then she has her kind of reverse heel turn, and she's the good guy at the end who saves the day.
Yep. Oh, yeah. No, it took me a minute to even realize it was her when we get to the end. It's like piloting Scrapper.
Well, they literally do the like let her hair down thing. That's her big change.
Yes,
is that she has her hair down.
Well, that's it took me a minute to realize it was her. Why is her tie so wide? That's an interesting choice.
I have no idea. Well, maybe it's because they're overcompensating from Charlie Day's really thin tie that you pointed out in the last movie.
It was very, very thin. Like the knot, it looked like they had been sewn together. Anyways.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
It looked like somebody tried to make a tie out of a shoelace.
Yeah. The costuming is interesting because, there's so many sci-fi movies that do the whole, like, just turn the lapels kind of, like, in instead of fold them out. And, like, there you got a future suit. It's just an odd thing, but just, like, this movie does it also. And it's such a common trope with, like, future suits. I think we pointed that out in Aliens. I hate
right? Future suits. Any type of Aliens and in Serenity. Because I brought it up in both of those because I hate future suits. Anything that involves a tie in a future suit, I think is ridiculous. I currently think like ties got really big late 1800s, coming from the classic cravat, coming from other types of petticoats and waistcoats and vests, and the way that they evolved in order to draw the eye in certain places. weird ad hoc history of the tie. But I hate ties in future things, and I think that their existence right now in this kind of microcosm of like the last 60 years, 60 to 150 years, they're so stupid. They need to go away. Ties are dumb. I don't want to wear one. I don't think they look good.
You don't think they look good?
They're uncomfortable.
They are somewhat uncomfortable.
I don't.
I think they can look sharp.
Like, they look good in like a military uniform, okay? Like, look at this awesome uniform that the Marshal is wearing, right? Look at the Air Force dress blues, right? Ties can look good, but they're not functional. They don't do anything. And you could replace that with something else that looks just as good.
Are you going to... okay, I'm about to say. Interesting little... okay, really fast. Back to the film here. I was going to ask you another tie question, but I'm like, we should probably get back to this. I just immediately found it stupid that, like, wait a minute. So the Jaeger's being transported over. Did they not have to, like, walk out and get picked up by the helicopter and get hooked up and a whole thing? Why would they not have practiced or even like tried to drift until the moment where they're in public? It just is one of those,
right?
It's just stupid.
And like, again, it completely removes the importance of drift compatibility that was so key to the first one.
Yeah.
I love the amount of which this woman looks so artificial is startling to me.
Yeah.
I would kill for a scene where a couple of those seagulls get sucked into that thing's turbine.
It's not that kind
of movie. That would have been
kid.
Really funny.
I did for a split second.
Not that deep in Sydney Harbor, right there.
Maybe he was like laying down, swimming, like he was breaststroking.
Yeah. The idea of a rogue.
Go ahead.
Jaeger, I think, is a great idea for a sequel, though.
I liked the moment where he bumped the cruise ship out of the way.
Yeah.
So this this Jaeger, what do they call it, Mega or whatever? Yeah. I do think the design is kind of cool, because if you're gonna do sleek, the idea of doing it like black with the kind of orangish red, lighting and everything. It's just, it's a classic combination, and it does work.
Yeah. It has kind of RoboCop 2014 vibes.
It does. But the contrast is like the one thing out in the daylight that kind of, works. And there's enough lighting on it. Like RoboCop didn't have any lighting outside of the head.
Wait. I was thinking of RoboCop, but I was also thinking of the Destroyer from Thor. Also, why are they suddenly losing power? He just has some random line where he yells, "We're losing power." He hasn't even been hit yet. All they did was catch the dinner plate helipad.
They got hit by some missiles in the back.
I guess. I don't like it still.
Oh no, it's
I'm just looking for problems though. But yeah, they're moving so quickly.
I hate that. The idea that the amount of force it would take to lift that thing off the ground with a punch like that. Oh, the whole reverse thing was interesting. It's just there's no. It's too fast. Yeah. It's just you're gonna hear us say this multiple times throughout this movie. It's too fast. Also, the collateral destruction in this movie is so over the top. There's no attempt whatsoever. Like when they're going through and they start pulling down like buildings on top of the kaiju, I'm just like, all right, so we're definitely not caring about this in this movie. And just
yeah. Well, the worst one is when a later scene when they're like running through the streets and they have their blades out and they're just cutting through buildings.
Yeah. Because it looks cool.
Yeah, but one of the things I'll also say, the music is really bad in this scene. The entire time it was being thrown around earlier, it was just the same drone of dur-dun, dur-dun. There's no personality to the music, No, and that was one of the strengths of the first one.
Yeah, this sounds like video game music.
It sounds like Transformers music.
Oh,
What the hell's a Gravity Slang?
Well,
Like, why would?
it grabs things. It's the gravity gun because again, they
don't know if they didn't check those cars. There's probably people in there.
Yeah, there's a very good chance there are. And the
For
idea
those of
that
you unable to see this, they just grabbed a whole bunch of cars, put them into a ball, and threw them.
yes,
Definitely some people in those cars. One of those had a baby on board bumper sticker, and you know it.
slow motion.
Another slow motion. Reaching for a helicopter that way, if you're going to catch it, come underneath. Okay? Like, lift. He was going to grab it right in the rotors.
Boom.
And they just killed Mako in a freaking helicopter crash.
Yep. And the idea too that like he just like jumps out of his Jaeger here and just completely
Like,
oh man.
How irresponsible could you get? Also, you could see kind of how much cheaper the suits are in this one than the first one.
Oh, they're
and I assume that was for the comfort of the actors.
Yeah. Well, they're just like
you could blame it on evolving technology.
Yeah, they're just bodysuits with some plastic bits glued onto them. Is all they are.
It's cosplay.
Yeah.
Like I watched a couple of video essays on this, and one of my favorites, there was this guy who was just like, so this is the last Airbender film to me, and this is fan fiction. This is just a big fan film that's not even made right. I'm like, I feel it. I do like this wall. This is a good wall. I appreciate it. I think that it's futuristic-y enough.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense to be like hologram stuff here. Now, okay, I know just enough to be dangerous, but do you know what the plan was for explaining the absence of Raleigh? The
no.
Charlie Hunnam's character. I know there was something about like they were going to try to explain.
There wasn't
why
there wasn't going to be any explanation for it.
Well, I thought that was written, but then they realized that like it wasn't working and it kind of was dragging things down, or there was something because they don't even. I mean, he's brought up as like a legendary pilot. He's like listed with like legendary pilots, but they don't even try to explain like did he die? Like what's going? Like where is he? Is he's retired?
Let me see here.
Well, like
do. See if there's anything on here. Guillermo del Toro was set to direct. He said that there would be a Mexican Jaeger called Black Maria. That was changed due to worries that it would be racially insensitive. Guillermo del Toro never watched this movie, quoting, "It'd be like watching home movies of your ex-wife. It is terrible if they're good, and it's worse if they're bad."
Oh.
You don't want to know. You don't want to see it. I read the final script, but it was very different from the film, apparently. I got distracted because that was just such a funny little anecdote.
That is funny. See, this
also,
is a
the
scene...
story about the...
No, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go for it.
This is an example of a scene that if it had been handled better, could have been a really good sequence of showing them having a moment together, re-emphasizing the drift compatibility somehow matters still, that there's, but it just kind of becomes just a redux trauma dump scene for her of just like, okay, so she, she went through some bad stuff too. And it could have, it ended up just being just a recycle of what they did last time. And it's frustrating.
I was going to say, it's a poor copycat of Mako's moment.
It is.
Well,
because it's not nearly as intense. The actress isn't as good. The setting isn't as intense. The kaiju isn't nearly as terrifying. It's just
the stomp is pretty good. There is a little bit of that moment. It's that I did find intense, where she's like, "I'm gonna jump to my parents. Everything's gonna be okay." You have an expectation of what's gonna happen, and then her family just gets squished.
Squished.
It's a rough time. for the poor girl. I like the kaiju design. I think it's a little bit like kind of classic-y. It's got like a giant devil lizard centipede look to it. I like it. Um, and like, yeah, she's jump. Um,
I'm trying to think of like,
yeah, I don't know. I am watching this.
yeah,
It's like she's gonna jump, and you boom, like that was. I jumped a little bit at that, and I do still appreciate that moment a little bit. I'm like, okay, that took some balls to do.
yeah.
Let's just squish the family.
But they also never take anything from this and turn it into like a moment to overcome later. There's no connection to anything else, and it's just she's got trauma, and the in its best form, this is just
If anything,
this is just another version of she has trauma. It doesn't, because like in the first movie, Mako, the connection was to the other character. It's still tied to others, and it still had something to do with more than just I have trauma. The end.
yeah. And one of the things though is that there's that big jump to the other Jaeger, right? At the end of the movie, like one of her big moments.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's the opposite of that. If she had jumped, she would have died. Like, there's no way that it's almost like she blames herself that if she had jumped earlier, maybe they would have gotten out of the way of the kaiju and everybody would have lived. But at the same time, even if she had jumped, they wouldn't have gotten out of the way in time. So it kind of falls flat on a logistical level. So I see that there's this supposed to be this image of her jumping and not being afraid to jump that is supposed to pay off in the end, but it's not done.
That scene is also just awful because
with enough wherewithal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
It's building. I think
it's cool building. There's a lot of cool ideas in this film that just do not even remotely get unpacked correctly or explored correctly. She's a very striking woman.
I forgot how much this movie feels. She is very attractive, even if she does kind of look like a doll. But it's the makeup thing.
Yeah. So the way she's made up. Who drags, by the way?
Yeah.
Like, sorry, we're only 45 minutes into this, and I'm already like a little tired. I hate these these
45 minutes in.
These pilot suits. They look like some kind of punishment. Just they have very little texture. I mean, they added. Do you like them? I find them very weirdly like baby clothes looking.
I think that's intentional, and I don't mind it for that because this is supposed to be, these are the idiots messing with things that they can't control. These are the bad guys. You're like at this point in the movie, there's no antagonist, there's no plot yet, and you're fairly certain that she's gonna be the villain. They're setting her up to be the villain, and so you have this test pilot, and he's obviously a very big, strong, square-jawed American man. So they put him in this like ugly pajamas. It's supposed to be kind of funny. It's supposed to show that these people are not taking things seriously. This scene bugs the crap out of me. They showed the building, right?
They're the very top of a very.
How are all of these in the building?
Yeah, they're the very top of like a cylinder tower.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this scene is weird.
The scene is uncomfortable when you really think about it. Like, that he's weird. That he's got problems.
They also overmade him up in this movie.
You're like, oh, honey, I'm home. Is he married?
Yeah. And it makes sense to me that he's, he presents a little bit more, I don't know, just smoother in a way. Like, it's just that he was a little more wiry in the first movie. But it makes sense that, he's got some money and some comfort and, he's kind of trying to fit into a certain world. So I don't, it makes sense as a character, but he just doesn't look, he's got an interesting face. And in this movie, he looks just not as interesting.
But yeah, it really feels like he's having sex with this alien brain.
I think he is.
Like, it even has hearts written on the case, and he's named it Alice.
Yeah. Well, they literally hit the,
Ugh.
what is that? The Foreigner, I think. Yeah, I Want to Know What Love Is. Yeah, that classic 80s song. Oh, goodness.
Like, the idea of him being kind of messed up in love with this alien brain, fine, but him having some sort of neural connection that is sexually stimulating, you didn't need that. And, like, if you wanted to introduce the idea that this thing is manipulating him, because we already that's what ends up being the case, and that it's using an almost pornography-like sexual addiction, stimulation addiction, to keep him coming back to it, is an interesting idea. Not necessarily one I think you could pull off in a movie like this, and they shouldn't have done it, but that's the only way that it could have worked. And instead he had sex with Brain in his room.
Yeah. I kind of hate the there's the like trigger that gets her down off her bed. The jerk kid, this older lady here, is bigger is better.
Mm-hmm.
Like arguing about the size of a Jaeger is really, and then I find it really strange that this movie chooses to not, even with the subtitles on, not give you any subtitles for the Chinese being spoken. So you're just meant to interpret it based on their actions.
I thought that it was like a me thing.
No, it's me too. It's odd though, because it's like, I mean, I get that there's a version where you're like, you want the audience to just infer based on the actors, actions and the environments and all these things. Yet you need a better movie to pull that off. This is a movie where you just need to tell us what they're saying, because there's no nuance to any of this. By the way, I'm in the middle of Andor right now, and I was like, it's Biggs. So,
Big?
from
Biggs.
Andor. I'm in the middle of season 2 right now, and it's Biggs. Anyways,
Bix.
Is it Biggs?
Nice.
Oh, it's sorry. It's the way the way that he says it is. It sounds more like it. Yeah, you're right. It is Bix.
Because Biggs is an entirely different character.
Biggs Darklighter. Yes, I know who
dies.
Biggs Darklighter is. He's Luke's best friend. But I mean, the way that is it Diego? Is that the actor?
Diego Luna.
Yeah, the way that he says it makes it sound more like. Anyways, I'm sorry if that's offensive. I truly don't mean it that way. I just honestly heard it as a G in my mind. Okay, this is the one fight where the ice actually makes it kind of interesting. The snow effect makes it kind of interesting. There's like haze in the air. And the fight has some like decision making and purpose to it that I think is interesting with the way that they choose to do certain things. It's still not anywhere as good as any of the fights in the first movie, but this is like the one battle that I kind of actually found interesting.
Like, my question is, what are they doing here again? Like, and why would they send these two?
Because they're like the main trainers too, but it's also
I didn't really understand it.
What was is this must have been like where this Jaeger was was based out of, and that's why it was coming back, maybe because that's where Mako
like built or something. They like tracked it there somehow.
I do appreciate by the way that they kept sliding because they are on ice.
Yeah,
like the physics actually somewhat are the physics are
sort of work.
Yeah, I mean they're closer. This thing has no torso. I still find it weird that they went straight up Iron Man with the whole chest beam again. Like that was a big emergency maneuver in and is it like
in the first one? Yeah,
is it sword a lightsaber can like deflect energy?
I guess so. Like, to quote John Boyega, they fly now, but they have lightsabers now. Yeah. The Jaegers should not fly.
No, they should, because
Jaegers should never fly.
Underwater, it makes sense that they'd be a little more maneuverable, but the the Jaegers get moved by, like, again, so a plasma cannon that could throw a Jaeger that far. Newton's third laws don't cease to exist. You know what I mean?
Objects in motion stay in motion.
Well, no,
until
and you know,
outside force.
opposite forces. It's like whenever somebody fires a shotgun in a movie, and the other guy goes flying. Well, if that happened, then the person firing the shotgun would also go flying, because that is how physics work. If shotguns actually did that.
Yep. Right.
So why don't they have
like-
swords in both arms? Why does
Okay.
Gypsy? Because they did in the first movie.
Maybe there's something more important in that arm.
Also, too, Gypsy gets like fully
I don't know.
repaired
I'm making
twice,
shit up.
because Gypsy gets messed up in this fight. Even though they win this fight, they get major damage, and then they also they got their sword ripped out there, and even in Sydney, they get beat up a little whiz. But then when they show up again in the end, they're like, it's like brand new again.
Yeah.
But they like
they really dialed in those repair crews, I guess, in the last 10 years.
they even had time to like polish it again.
Did they find out how its name is Obsidian Fury?
No, they said people are calling it Obsidian Fury. Like social media had already like named it somehow. Yeah.
It's not a bad name.
No.
You see, that's not a bad concept. It's a kaiju brain that's piloting it. Like, ooh, that's interesting. Where did it come from? I'll buy that for $1.
I just imagine what this room must smell like.
But my question is, why is he doing this? He's a mathematician, not a biologist.
Maybe they think because he drifted with the kaiju that he's just by default, and he's a named character, so they need to give him more to do.
Yep. That's what it is. My God.
I do appreciate that. So as I was saying, the repair crews must be amazing. That one, they did show that they brought it to the base, because then later when Gypsy Danger has its swords, it's not out of nowhere.
Yeah,
I keep saying Gypsy Danger because that's in my mind. Gypsy Avenger.
Avenger, which little on the nose there, bro.
Yeah. There were some very popular films made.
I feel like they should. I feel like they should have stayed away from anything with the word Avenger in it. They're just trying to find out if there's somebody of Romani descent on the team. So somebody's just like, are there any gypsies in the Avengers? And they're like, oh, let's watch this movie.
Bad Blood.
Yeah. This. Oh, look, acid, blood, and all kinds of weird, gooey sci-fi tubes? Interesting. I wonder if they could have gotten that idea.
No.
Again, this movie just feels like a combination of different things.
Well,
Though, the idea of the kids sneaking into this thing it fits to me for this type of story following cadets, because that feels like something that would happen in a young adult novel or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was a Netflix series called Pacific Rim. Was it like The Black, I think, or something like that, where it was about kids who like find a Jaeger. Yeah. My youngest daughter got into it and enjoyed it. And it was very much I saw 1 or 2 episodes, and it was.
I heard it was very good, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad, but again, it was just the idea that kind of they tried to pivot, even continue pivoting into, I think, making, instead of Pacific Rim chasing the audience of your people our age and our background as far as just loving genre stuff and loving Asian influences and all these things, that it's like they decided we need to go for kids. We need to get kids into this. And you can tell they kind of had notes about that in this one movie. And then in the follow-up animated stuff, they definitely pivoted hard towards let's have kids imagine that they were piloting these Jaegers and that's how we're going to save this franchise somehow. But even that, they could have done that if they had fully committed to it. And again, if they had spent a lot of their time building up these cadet characters, they could have been much more effective in, because even kids, they still need characters to connect to. And kids, believe it or not, need something more than angry guy, smart guy, scrappy guy as characters.
Yeah. I mean, you look at what's popular with kids right now, like, it's also what parents are willing to keep coming back to. Kids have a lot of influence on parents, but not so much so that they're just going to watch the schlockiest crap ever. Often that does happen.
Well, we all get to send our kids to their room to watch stuff we don't want to see anymore.
I had a thought and it's gone now.
How could your thoughts leave, man?
Yeah, I know.
Shunt cabling. Okay. I like the idea here that that this is like the one. This is quite literally the only time they take anything from their backgrounds and make it matter is right here, where her background working with a lot of strip tech and stuff like that, like gave her an insight. And again, like I'm glad that they tried to do that, but they should have used more of that somehow. They should have given her background more connection, and her background still has way more connection than Pentecost does.
Yeah, he still doesn't really matter, except that he's there to be a pilot. He's there to connect things.
Well, yeah, he's there to be a main character. He has no other.
Be the name.
Yeah. Both of the two pilots, him and I don't even know his character's name, but Eastwood's. Okay. They both have nothing. They both have nothing except we are characters who are doing a thing in this movie.
Yes, we are here to be pilots, and we are important. Somehow. They're both important because of who their dad was. One of them literally, one of them in the story.
That's one way to put it, I guess.
Yeah. And then kicking her out of the program really fast, does that seem logical to you? Does that seem like a good story beat?
I mean, it makes sense because she was the newest one, that she's the one who would have the worst penalty. But again, like right here, the idea that there's like a little begrudging respect there, like comes out of nowhere. It's not earned at all. And then they immediately are like, they timed this so that they wouldn't have to wait at all to jump right into, conveniently she's right there. They don't get a chance to get her way. I was expecting Scrapper to actually be pivotable. I thought that it would matter here somehow. Not at the end of the film. Once this scene starts getting going, and all the regular Jaegers are not really in a position to do anything, and she was like on her way out, I was sitting there waiting for her to come in and like somehow do something cool, and it's fine that they didn't, but for some reason
my
that's what it was expected.
expectation was that she was going to be. At this point in the movie, and I give him credit for being a little bit unpredictable in this, is that she would still be on base, something would go really wrong, they're having a whole bunch of problems, they need all hands on deck, she sees they're in trouble, she takes Scrapper, saves them with Scrapper, that gets her back in the program, then she is piloting Gypsy Avenger at the end of the movie. That was my expectation for this scene. Right around this time, one of my favorite authors was writing a book series that I remember seeing this movie and thinking, did they read that? It's called Starsight, because it feels like this a lot, but like this feels like a shitty knockoff. But then again, this movie feels like a shitty knockoff of everything. Did you know that Charlie Day wrote or acted his character in this as if he was in love with the little his friend character Herman? That's how
Really
he wanted to play their relationship.
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, they have the
Secret lover.
they have the panning, a little bit of slow motion. This is a Michael Bay shot right here.
Very Michael Bay. I
It's
genuinely wonder if DeKnight kind of wanted to make himself like, I'm going to be the new Michael Bay, but a good one type of attitude.
Well, he did not succeed in this film. As much as I dislike a lot of Michael Bay's work, I think he would have made a better movie than this.
I agree.
Okay, so
Chinese is a really difficult language.
oh, it is. It's very difficult. Okay, so it's. I do like This is also one thing about this fight. I said earlier, and I was wrong about this. That all the fights happen in broad daylight. This is like the one interesting as far as the environment. It's they it's at night. Also, too, the fact that none of our main characters are in Jaegers gives it a very different perspective. You kind of you get to see an angle and everything. It's a lot more looking up at the Jaegers. The camera angles are better. Again, we have to be quippy. Why do we have to throw quips in this? Shut up. It's genuinely.
I do like this elevator scene with the girl from Ipanema playing in the background.
Do you believe?
Anybody want to get out?
Do you buy this for a second though?
Oh, not for a second.
That
This is
these
a terrible
guys,
idea.
that these Asian security guys are taken down by these two guys, even caught off guard. That's even remotely possible.
If anybody is still listening to this far in, just know that two nerds, including one with a cane and one who's just crazy, just took down a team of highly trained Chinese bodyguards in an elevator like they're freaking Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah. I do think that this is effective though in terms of putting them together when the movie fully goes, I'm evil. I don't know. I'm glad they had him there to be a little bit of an emotional anchor in that, because you having somebody there with him when he goes evil, that gives it a little bit of weight. I'm happy about. This was odd to me. Just I get that we're creating breaches, and I mean that they're kind of the movie's very. I do admire the movie very quickly letting you know what the heck is happening here. And that, if you're familiar with the world, you're like, oh, okay, so we're trying to get, actual kaiju back into this. But, man, a lot's going on at once here. I do like the
thing about that is that, closing
got,
one breach was such a huge deal.
I hate the spinning missiles.
Yeah, closing one breach was such a huge deal.
Sorry. It's just dumb.
Yeah?
It's just
not
dumb.
a big fan of that?
Well, that they, group up and then spread out again. It was just dumb. Anyway, sorry. Marshall's dead.
Marshall's dead. Bye.
One breach was a big deal. So 3 is a really big deal.
Oh, but they're doing more than 3, and then they only get 3 kaiju through.
Yeah, but they're big ones.
These things are open for a minute, right? This is a big plan. Shouldn't this have been an invasion?
I do like the detail of Charlie Day rolling up his sleeves and showing his kaiju tattoos that were there from the first movie. That even back in the first movie, he kind of just loves kaijus. He thinks they're awesome.
Yeah.
And I wish they had kept him like that, because they put him back in a regular suit later. I feel like
they also do
good.
They also do decently well at making him kind of an unhinged that you're genuinely kind of afraid of.
Yeah. Well, the whole yeah.
If you've ever seen any of all of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and he's such a big dork and nerd and literally insane in that show, and he has the really high voice all the time and acting all nutter butters, then to have him actually try and have this air of menace and gravitas, I think it works. I think that he does it decently well at moments.
So
Not a lot.
Yeah, this is just a weird scene here now. I think he's monologuing here. You know, that she all of a sudden is like taking her time and like kind of not. I don't know. It's just it's I don't know how to describe it. This whole scene just seems odd to me. Her reaction was odd. Kind of the her just his starting to explain things. She's I don't know. I can't even describe exactly what's off to me, but it just does not seem correct.
I did appreciate that. I get what you're saying. It felt off. The reactions weren't right. The need for her to keep him alive because he's going to have some sort of power to change this makes some sense. So she's not shooting him right away.
Yeah, no, I totally understand him not being killed.
Mentioning that like 80% of her company is automated. Great line, you know. I like the design of the kaiju Jaegers, kaiju drones. It also seems strange to me that this big problem that they have of these things opening, the way that they fix it is the computers. Like,
yeah.
They're able to just very easily. Okay. I do like that. That felt like it had weight, you know? It fell appropriately for the first movie. But then they're back to moving really fast and quick physics and Michael Bay slow-mo.
Yeah. And then just the idea here of like
we didn't know the
all
pilots that were in there, which was kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, that was a point because there was an actual like sacrifice play there, like, you know, maybe not a sacrifice play, but like an actual moment of we're going to try to help even though it puts us in danger. And it's just the whole every main character is about to die if somebody on a computer board doesn't do their thing fast enough is just it's a cliche of cliches that we didn't need.
You wait a minute. So the trash compactor in the original Star Wars, you didn't like that?
It wasn't a cliche in the 70s, dude. When you've done it 50 years later, then it gets, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just being.
Oh no, you're fine. I'm struggling to find like it. I'm not engaged with this. That's the hard thing is that we're watching something here. There's so much going on, and there are moments here and there of like, all right, this is there was a cool shot there of that, and there was the cool design there of that, but it's just I don't care at all about anything that is happening right now, and that's the movie's fault. That's not mine. Mm-hmm. The movie's job is to make me care about this. The movie's job is to pull me into this. The movie's job is to have shown me characters that I'm interested in, that I'm invested in. The movie's job is to put people in peril that I am, concerned for, and things like that. That they made a point of like the pilot dying, and it's just a failure on every level. And then right here, he's like, I got like the smirk, like, are you right? Are we going to get going? Well, let's go get these guys. Like, you're standing in the middle of all this death and destruction, but you're like, you still got time to be quippy. Sorry. I know I brought that gripe up multiple times.
Soldiers who are being kind of, like smirky in the middle of death and destruction, some sense to me.
No, they absolutely, they do exist, yes.
But here we go. So I remember this scene, and I thought that it was going to be this like big evil, like, oh, it's getting worse. But no, this is like the big Chinese corporation is coming to save the day, which is so weird to me. Like, that's so different than the entire mindset of the primary money spending audience that you're catering to. So I get that this movie was pretty much just made for China in that way. And I don't know, I guess I'm just having trouble divorcing it in my head from who's this movie for? Because it's focused on Americans. China famously is not a big fan of actors physically like John Boyega. While also having this just such like pro-China corporation thing going. Really strange.
It is, and I'm sorry to say this out loud. I thought that only white Americans were capable of being that way. Anyways, moving right on. It's the movie definitely has an identity crisis. You're right, because I've seen actually quite a few made in China for Chinese audience action, sci-fi movies, and they're very different. Their storytelling sensibilities are, just, they move in a different way. Obviously, there's an agenda to a lot of stuff where the state is the hero, large, big move, and it's fine, but there's a reason why they do gangbuster numbers over there and they don't do good over here, because we're a different audience, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's totally fine. But yeah, this movie, it's like it really wants
different
to have
cultures,
it both ways.
different strokes. Bollywood doesn't do well over here.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. But you're right. This movie just it's trying to do too many things. It's trying to juggle too many, this audience is going to love this, and this audience is going to love this, and ultimately, it's not good at any of them, which is why it didn't. And okay. We get the theme finally. We get a little bit of the theme. We get these quick like zoom cuts. This montage thing. All right, I'm waving my arms. So we're doing repair work here. The speed at which this repair work is done, and then the idea that it is faster to rig up these insane rockets, that they have the logistics, by the way, to build these things and strap them on and put them all on launch pads out there, and that was all faster and better idea than what? Just getting some helicopters over here to fly them over, because they're already on that side of the Pacific Ocean, as far as I know. Japan's not that far away.
Do they not have some Chinese Chinooks?
This is the stupidest thing ever for the sake of, and this whole thing. Oh, I'm gonna kiss you on the cheek and kiss you on the cheek, and we're gonna have a little romantic awkwardness there for a second, for no other reason than to give us something to quip about.
Zero development whatsoever.
No, she has nothing. But it's just this is one of those plotty McPlot things that's happening here with the whole kaiju blood rockets. I hate it. I hate it so much. It's so stupid.
I forgot about that.
They're all little Master Chiefs.
Pisses me.
They're little cosplaying
They're
Master
all little
Chiefs.
Master Chiefs.
Little bastard chiefs.
As this movie kind of Master Chiefs itself right now. Like, is he doing a little, Pentecost epic speech? He's canceling the apocalypse.
Well, and he Riley Beckett. That's the only term for Riley Beckett's finally mentioned in this movie once. The main character of the first one. But the whole cliche of I'm gonna call out. I'm not gonna I'm not big on speeches. I'm not gonna give you a speech. Here's a speech. It's like wait, what?
Right?
You just said you weren't gonna do this, so you're doing this?
Yeah.
See right there, he looks so much like his dad.
And,
Sorry, when he's he's got the eyes. His eyes are just like his dad's. Sorry, I got caught up on
make
Scott.
A difference.
Scott Eastwood there for a second.
I hate the "we can make a difference" speech. That is one of those cliches that I absolutely despise. Is the the big speech where it's just this is our time to make a difference, and it's okay. Do you have anything else?
There we go. Everybody's good to go.
And
All the problems have been solved.
right? Like, she has drift compatibility with the angry blonde girl who hated her 30 minutes ago.
Well, and are all three of them drifting, or is she just chilling in the back to shoot the waist gun?
No, it's a triple drift. They established that earlier.
So not, but I mean, but I meant that in like not only is drifting like no big deal now, but triple drifting, which they called out in the first movie as being such a rarity because it was three twins that were able to do it. But now, you're just like roommates can like, you think like drifting with, two minds would be hard, right? Three should be a big freaking deal. And anyways.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, obviously technology has just improved so much, See, I don't actually mind that image. The idea of them having to strap rockets on them. I remember watching this first time, okay? And I'm seeing that, and I'm like, you know what they should have done? They should have had some kaiju, like, on the moon. And they needed to, like, launch these Jaegers to the freaking moon.
Okay.
Like, that would be the amount of ridiculous idiocy. I think it'd be funny.
Sorry, just
this was weird.
Yeah. Just an odd audio choice.
Like, right? I mean, all I could think of was that Saruman super edit from the early days of YouTube. Because it, has that in it.
Yeah.
Oh god, I just did that and the internet's gonna hear it. I like the look of this Jaeger. I like its face. I think it's a cool looking Jaeger.
But absolutely ripped off from Mass Effect 2. The Shadow Broker. The whole the
oh
face.
My gosh, it's the Shadow Broker.
It's exactly the same face. It is like the same like opening structure, everything. It is the Yogg, I think it's called. It is the species in Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, the Yogg. Yeah, because they're like super rare. They're on this planet that's like isolated and by itself.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why is because they kill everything that goes to their planet. And finally, the Alliance is just like, you know what? We're quarantining. Nobody's going to that planet anymore.
Yep. I do think it's not I guess what do you call it? I do like the little nod that they're in Tokyo. A little bit of the Godzilla nod here of like okay, so is Saber whatever the ninja one looks exactly like
Saber Athena.
Yeah, very much. Again, I said this last week. Big Hero 6 vibes with the design.
Yes, very much so. I agree with that.
What were you gonna say about Tokyo?
Now, the entire idea of them going to Mount Fuji in order to set off the entire ring of fire to like terraform this planet into being just like them, being hospitable for the precursor race. The entire reason they had it be Mount Fuji was freaking so they could do it in Tokyo.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's interesting because here you think if you wanted this to be, again, the Chinese audience, the Chinese and Japanese don't really get along, do they?
There's still some bad blood following the whole Unit 731 thing and all that other rape of Nanking and millions of Chinese dead at the hands of the Japanese Imperial Army that we like to kind of gloss over in the
But it's interesting that they didn't make the decision to have this like take place in Hong Kong or someplace like that.
Well, the thing is, this is actually they're benevolently saving their people. Not decent reference to the one scene in the original where they just kind of bump the car. Like, not horrible.
Yeah, okay, this. Man. Okay, these buildings have got to be... they're just killing people right now. 100%.
They've said that they evacuated the city, though. Surely they evacuated everybody and there's nobody left.
I love the idea of like how many buildings. Do you expect this to be an effective weapon? these things have shown they get thrown through buildings. Your Jaegers get thrown through buildings and don't seem to matter.
Yeah. But in relation to the thing, the Japan thing, this is showing like magnanimous China coming to the rescue of its former enemy neighbor, while also being a reference to the thing, and also they wouldn't set it in a Chinese city because to have a Chinese city be destroyed like this would make it look weak.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so I do like the shell casings coming down. The size of this Jaeger though, the size of this Jaeger and the size of those shells, they would not have had a ton of ammo, though. Just saying.
Right? Where's the magazine?
Well, also
that wasn't a terrible scene. I didn't like the yelling, but that I'm okay with slow-mo in that scene.
I mean, but we absolutely have Whiplash here, right? Not Whiplash. Whiplash from Iron Man 2. Okay.
Yeah. But Whiplash from Iron Man 2 is kind of...
Yeah, but I just mean they just copied him. So they
finally just copy the movie.
Yeah, but they finally gave a Jaeger just guns, like just straight up guns. Like, what if we just gave him big guns?
Right? I like the reversible gun turret thing.
Oh yeah, no, it mechanically it was interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I really wanted there to be a Jaeger that just kind of has like a really sudden twist that like literally its head turns around and snaps back, its arms go backwards, and it can like run either way. Like I wanted a reversible Jaeger.
Well, because
I know that's weird, but
no, I mean it's well something like I'm trying to think. There was we watched something where they did that, like the robot like turned around, like it's
it was Thor.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, it was Thor,
and
they gave it the whole with the destroyer. She looks so different, by the way. The head of the corporation, it took me a little bit to realize it really was the same person, because they have her let her hair down, way less made up. Okay. I feel like they could have easily just destroyed all the Jaegers right here. Like with these things, if they had just swarmed the Jaegers, I feel like there's nothing that they could have done to stop them. And like
that, I would actually write around. I imagine that they have established that the Jaegers, there are other little creatures that come along with the kaiju.
Yeah.
So. One, I think that these are just supposed to be repair bots for the kaiju. They're not supposed to be attackers. And then two, I would have some sort of defense for the Jaegers, to where if something's crawling over it, they can like shock it off, like electropulse it somehow.
So something that my daughter said immediately while watching this scene that I completely agree with is, again, this has happened in a lot of films. Not going to say this movie's unique to it. But clearly this thing is getting bigger and stronger, and what we should do is we should just stand here and watch it happen and wait until it's fully ready to go before we do anything, instead of while it's vulnerable and going through its, combo upsizing there, that we should attack it when it's vulnerable instead of wait for it to be all ready for us again.
Yeah. That's one of those things that is annoying, but I don't hate it as much as some people.
I don't hate it.
This was like the trailer shot during a...
yeah. I mean, like I said, many, many, many films, including some good ones, are guilty of that kind of thing because you want the fight to happen. What do you think of the design of the big...
this kind of super kaiju.
Okay, I'm just about to ask you, what do you think?
I don't like it. It's bland. It's humanoid-esque, and it's too human. It's not human, but it's too recognizable. So many of the kaiju had like such strange designs to them, and this thing's just like big spiky ape shape. It looks like Godzilla with two tails.
Yeah.
That maybe had sex with a hermit crab.
Ooh. It's gonna leave a mark right there. Just gonna say.
Property
Yeah.
damage.
Excessive property damage.
So much property damage.
They're in rough shape.
Like they wouldn't. I feel kind of like they should have like. I don't know, it's like they made the choice to kill kids in this movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they were going to go that dark, then they should have gone a little darker to begin with, you know?
Well, again, this movie can't decide thematically if it wants to be fun and quippy and cool, and we're just we're about kicking butt and with our cool robots, or if it's going to be like this like serious movie about sacrifice and about overcoming this amazing it's just it can't decide what kind of tone it wants.
Also, again, this is me probably reading into things a little bit too much, but I don't think it's an accident which of the pilots died, because there have not been great relations between China and India for many, many years.
I mean, there might have been somebody with a memo somewhere that trickled down.
Like, well, we want to engage this audience too. Okay, fine, but there's one caveat.
Yeah. Yeah, Gypsy being able to like run and jump and I mean, this one at least looks less massive. I still don't think that it's still moving too fast, but the legs just gone. Mm-hmm. Ooh. Yeesh.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gypsy especially being able to.
What do you think of the holographic representations of the danger as well?
I mean,
entering into the thing.
That sucks. I'm sorry. Oh gosh.
Mm.
It's the biggest problem.
Stuff like that is pretty good. I'm all right with that,
Oh no, it looks cool, but that is one of the reasons why a humanoid robot is not the best choice, because limbs are inherently vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm. We have weak points.
We do, and they're easy to grab. Anyways,
also the sound mixing in this one isn't as good.
Yeah, what is it? I mean, just nothing has as much weight. Again, too, it's weird that it's so bright. It's part of what makes everything. Yeah. It makes the cheapness of like the suits stand out, because if they were fighting at night, their suits would look better. You wouldn't have to change anything about them. They would just look better because it was at night. But because it's brightly lit and shot very statically, it's it shows them in all of their just cheapness.
Cost.
And I'm sure that these cost money. I'm not trying to say they are cheap, like they didn't cost money, but they look cheap. They look like plastic, not like metal.
If somebody showed up to a Comic-Con in that, I'd be impressed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But like, listen to the music. Like, what even is that? It's just like I don't know. This scene is a oneer, and it's got some pretty cool stuff going on, and the music is like non-existent.
Yeah, it's like dun dun dun.
But it's not even dun dun dun. It's dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
I know. I'm annoying. I'm pedantic.
Oh no, you're fine. I'm just sorry. It's just. It is interesting to have Charlie Day just like just yelling at everybody from the roof.
Right?
The close up here of the texture of the kaiju is not bad, actually. Like the effects work right here.
Yeah, the effects looks pretty good.
I'm gonna go jump in the volcano now, Dad. That's what it feels like.
Maybe. Bye.
Bye. So is she in there working on? She's in there work. You know, it's revealed that she's working on the remote control for Scrappy for Scrapper. And like, what was the plan with that? Was Scrapper going to go in and somehow stop this thing, or like, why is she so desperately like, I'm almost done? Like like they haven't set it up. And short of the plan he comes up with here to use the rocket to get up in the air and turn Gypsy into a weapon, which is just a recycle of the exact same thing they did in the first one. This whole running thing. What was her plan? She's so far away. What was she jumping for? What was she? There was nothing hanging there. There was nothing. There was no plan at all there. Sorry.
I'm going to trust that my beloved partner is going to catch me.
But what is their plan with Scrapper at this point? Why are they so desperately trying to get Scrapper to be remotely piloted? What is it going to do? It's just there for convenience here when they need it all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But
they take this scene, which is, this is an interesting idea of him, like, he needs to swap out the pilots really fast. Like, I'm not entirely opposed to that idea, but it doesn't really work because, like, they take what's his face and they immediately like heal him almost of like his ailment.
Well, the next time you see him, he's there punching.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that they gave this the tiny bit of like we didn't immediately become like the greatest team ever. I don't like the line that was spoken there, but I do like the fact that they did show them having to stumble a tiny bit. This whole thing,
they needed some acclimation.
Yeah. Okay. So this whole thing that we're going to the amount of time this takes versus the speed this kaiju's moving at is just nowhere remotely in any kind of sync. But the idea of repeating Gypsy being the weapon that ends the thing itself, like the Jaeger itself, is just you just did the same thing in a slightly different way. You just didn't turn it into a nuclear bomb, but you still turned it into a ballistic missile. So, and the speed they get up to, the height they get up to, the precision they hit it at. It's a moving target, and they were a ballistic target making course corrections with the. It's just it's absurd. Even for this movie, it's absurd.
Yeah. And, like, here comes the Chinese CEO lady, and she's, like, the hero now somehow.
Well, she's like a Wascally Wabbit now. She's like a gerbil on a treadmill.
I don't actually mind that entirely. I think I would have liked it better if she'd been kind of like stripped of her power almost. Like I feel like if they had taken her character and had it to where she's lost everything. Like, she's lost her company. They remove all of it, And she's no one, she's nothing, but she's still going to help and have like an actual character to it. That could be an interesting character. And maybe they were kind of going for it. But like I honestly thought that Scrapper was going to be like the bomb. They were going to overload its core and shove it down the kaiju's throat or something. That's what I thought was going to happen. Also, they would be incinerated by the exhaust from this missile.
Oh, yeah. Well, the fact their visor's still open and the height that they get to when they come back down and there's no wind effect going on inside of this cockpit, really, is it's just, again, it's very inconsistent. It's kind of stupid. Like, they're in suborbit right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like, they'd be blind right there. And they looked into the sun.
They did. And they took like a deep breath, which I appreciate.
They would have no retinas.
And like I would have, it would have been at least a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And like I hear like the reentry like friction going on, yet apparently they're fine. if they had their face shields down or something, at least it would have helped a little bit with the believableness. But they still have like open face masks.
Turning the. Did you ever see the 2011 A-Team movie?
Oh, with
with Liam Neeson and Bradley Cooper.
Yes, I did. With the
where they're flying a tank.
The tank using the gun to steer.
Yeah.
But that movie understood. I'm not
like,
defending that movie. That movie was not good, but at least it knew what it was. It knew what it was.
Also, you just saw Sonic Boom go off. Like, I don't care how strong those suits are. The two of them would have been shredded right there.
Yeah.
Like with the open visor. So much of this movie would be fixed if they hadn't opened the visor, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they could have done that so differently. Yeah. And I think they should have just killed him.
Yeah.
Just, like, let him die.
No, because they needed to have him to tell Charlie Day and the precursors that they were going to come get them for the sequel to this that never happened.
Okay, let's talk about that. Do you know? Okay.
Go ahead.
Do you know who the precursors were? In Guillermo del Toro's original treatment, he revealed the origin of the precursors.
Okay.
Did you read anything about that?
I did not know.
The precursors were not aliens or even from another dimension. They were from the future. They weren't precursors, they were recursors. They were hyper-evolved humans who destroyed the world and decided that they were going to go back into the past, recolonize Earth for their evolved state. And that the kaiju are evolved versions of the Jaeger.
Oh, he's a poor guy. He's just, he's got a tummy ache. Okay, he would have been eviscerated, by the way.
He's easy.
The kinetic energy of that Jaeger going as fast as he supposedly was going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just did it a bit. But yay, it died, and we're all safe now.
They really do look like Spartans.
Except for the poor Indian kid.
Let's say, they just every time I see them in daylight, it just makes me think that we're cosplaying as Spartans from the Halo universe, but like really badly. Yeah, he's fine. He got up
maybe
here.
like ODST or something.
Yeah.
Right. Lambert.
We caught ourselves
That's the
a
first
newt.
time I've noticed his name.
Yeah. Anyways, it's just okay.
Oh, now they're brothers.
And then we're gonna end in a snow fight here.
Oh my god! So much of this movie.
Did you forget this?
I forgot so much about this movie, and then I remember seeing like somebody was doing like and then this is how this movie ended, and it was that final throw from Gypsy Avenger, and with them going and killing the kaiju that way, and it was like crawling into Mount Fuji, and I'm like, what is this shit? And then I'm like, oh my god, it's this movie. What the hell?
Oh, it's so pretty. The sun's over Mount Fuji.
I've taken some movies. I've defended some movies and defended some odd things. I've even sat there and talked about like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show and the Acolyte TV show, both of which I really don't like because of how poorly done they were. But I've been like, the elevator pitch works for those movies. I know why they made them. The elevator pitch for this movie doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. And like, I don't know. Nothing about this makes sense.
No.
Why are they called precursors? This feels like an end credit sequence that they decided not to put it at the end of the credits.
They were
quite, you know what I mean?
Yeah, apparently they were pretty confident they were going to get another one.
Yeah, they wanted a franchise, and now it's trying to play Labyrinth.
We are getting a little
David Bowie,
version
I
of the
guess.
the theme again, though.
Yeah. Like, there was no theme to this movie. The music was such a disappointment because the music was such a highlight to the previous one.
Well, when you
And
pointed this out last week, I didn't realize how many amazing pieces of music the composer for the first movie had done. Like movie music that I'm very familiar with and love, and I just hadn't realized it was him. I feel bad because I forgot his name, but he's very talented man.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to remember it as well. It's an Indian name. He's done a lot of things. Oh my God, the guy who did this movie has done so many things that I utterly despise. The
Okay.
music, I mean. Like, okay, let's check this out. This guy has done music for Pacific Rim Uprising.
Lauren.
Okay, he did do
Balfour?
Mission Impossible Fallout. Let's see. He did Gemini Man, which sucked. Bad Boys for Life, which sucked.
Terminator
he
Genesis.
Did Black Widow,
So
which
bad.
sucked. Terminator Genesis, which sucked. The Tomorrow War, which sucked. Secret Headquarters, which sucked. Black Adam, which is one of the worst movies I have ever seen, and I would piss on its grave. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 was okay. Bad Boys Ride or Die, Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F, Dragon Age The Veil Guard, Wheel of Time. I have mixed feelings about you, Wheel of Time. I don't think I like Lorne Balfe. He's probably good with music, but I don't think I like him.
Oh goodness. Yeah,
I know,
so
it's
this
cruel. I should be nicer.
So to ask you one of your favorite questions, if you were, is there any way that you could have, if somebody handed you this script, is there any way you could have fixed this without just tossing it and kind of starting over? Is there any way that you could have even a semblance of what's here still? You know, because we both have our own ideas for what we would have done instead of this, but fixing this versus something totally different.
Yeah, I think I could. Mostly, I would tear out the first act. I would start it. Essentially, what I would do is I'd keep all the characters that they have in place. I would keep the idea of Charlie Day's character, Newt, is been infected by the kaiju. They're coming to do something nefarious. I would definitely change it from trying to create, blow the Pacific Rim, the Ring of Fire volcanoes. That was bizarre. I would make it so that they're trying to open another larger rift, like a more secure rift, so they can get in by opening like a whole bunch of smaller ones, so they can have some kaiju and they're able to open a more secure rift, and blah blah blah. You could write some shit in there. I would start it with kind of a Kobayashi Maru sequence. I would then use that to introduce their new commander. It's a Pentecost. The whole big thing is that they admire this man, and oh my god, he's gonna be the trainer and savior that they need because of how cool his dad was. And then you find out that he was like excommunicated by the Jaeger program and his dad because he was a literal criminal and an asshole, and that's his thing. You have the girl who's trying. They show that somebody sponsored her to get in here because they see like this genius in her, but they don't really respect her because she's a street kid who's there because they were scrapping the Jaegers and building things like that, and they showed that she built her own Jaeger. Maybe have like a flashback to her getting caught piloting this little makeshift Jaeger that she built herself. And that almost use it like Ender's Game, where these are the underdogs. They have to cobble it together. They make mistakes. They get in trouble. Introduce some more heroic pilots. One of the things I would do is I would have it so that the Jaegers haven't been just sitting around for 10 years doing nothing. I would have it so that like there's other almost like minor kaiju that are still around, that are doing other things and like growing, like there's seeds of kaiju almost that are growing into larger things, and so there's still a use for the Jaegers, and so that they have some kind of new heroes, and you see those heroes die and they need to replace them, and it's just like kind of build it up from there. It'd be a very simple tropey story, but you would focus on the characters and you would bring back the heavy, very weighted action. And also, you want to build up the threat of the precursors. Show us more precursors. Show us what they're doing. Make them an actual threat that we are curious to see more of them, and also afraid of what they could possibly do to the characters, to the world. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with pretty much everything you're saying so far.
That's just me.
Yeah. No, it's so. Yeah, I think that you find a reason beyond just they're related to or were in the first movie as a reason for your characters to exist, and you need to build a small core group of people that you get invested in, that you enjoy, that you care about what happens to them. Have some, doing some sacrifice plays would be a good idea. Like have a the Jaeger that died, that had the big spiky ball thing. The pilot that died.
Yeah. When it did its like final stand and showed the pilot inside.
Have the pilot that was piloting that be like the trainer that was all the kids loved. That was like this great this great man or woman, doesn't matter, that was like deeply in meant something to the kids, that you had shown that they were like really kind of lovable and like a very kind soul that really took kids under their wings, but was also this amazing pilot, and do a sacrifice there with somebody that the movie's taken a few minutes to show you why this would matter and why this would affect these kids, and help kind of galvanize them and kind of get their butts in gear, and and then pair them up where you're seeing the culmination of bits of character development and overcoming problems that they've had. Have the two people that hated each other have to drift together. That's actually interesting, but show that them getting there. Show where they went from their rivalry to something that was mutual respect, and then even friendship at the end. And I mean, you can do stuff like that. If you don't. So we talked about this. The biggest problem with the first movie was that the main character just wasn't acted super well. But even in spite of that, there was still some genuine chemistry. The movie looked so good. The combat was so interesting. The texture of the film, the vibe of it was so good. And if you had made the characters even better, because I think you could have made the characters even better than the first movie, and on top of it, you shot it better. You didn't try to speed it up. You kept the weight there. You didn't have the main fight take place in broad daylight. I think that was a big mistake. And you could have.
I think it should have been like during a typhoon.
Yeah, you could have had something very interesting happening, or, gosh, move. I know that cities make it where you kind of have that traditional. You got buildings and there's a bunch of crap in the way, but gosh, can you imagine if you had kind of a fight the kaijus from getting up the hills, and the entire battle was on the side of the mountain, and there was like a forest or some kind of a environmental issue where there really was a like they kept rolling back down, and it was like kind of getting back up and trying to stop the and they would get it was basically fighting for like King of the Hill type situation, and they were in the snow.
A very different environment. than what we've seen before.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of like the ice fight at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. But you could have done something like that where it was the environment itself was more interesting than simply we have buildings to smash into. Because you still could have had, then you could have used that,
Yeah.
I wonder if, because they have the little Half-Life reference with the portal voice, if they wanted to do the gravity gun, but they had like, the little slingshot gun or whatever. But then you could have had trees and rocks and stuff being grabbed, and used that gun in an effective way. Heck, even have a moment where a Jaeger that's been like really damaged, like gets thrown and like uses a weapon. I mean, you could have come up with creative and interesting ways to have a combat sequence in an environment that makes it interesting. But it was just another city, but this time it's city in broad daylight with everything moving so fast that it all seems like an anime, episode and not this grounded, gritty, real thing. So that combined with character development.
Like, imagine if you had like a big kaiju and it's like the last.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No. You go.
I was just saying, imagine if you had Scrapper there and you gave Scrapper an actual reason to be there, right? Make it so that the CEO lady, right? They have a moment where people are like totally against her because her company did all this. She's lost everything, but she's still like, I can still do something to try and fix it. You have that redemption arc, and there's this whole thing of like, oh, you know what? I know these machines. She takes remote control of Scrapper, and she's just like, I can help repair them on the fly if needed. Make that a thing that Scrapper can do.
Yeah.
Kind of like they showed it with a welder and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
Maybe bringing them ammo or something, or a battery. And essentially the end of it is that she overloads Scrapper's core and they like grab the actual miniature Jaeger and shove it like maybe even inside of a wound that was already caused, or straight down its throat or something, and the Jaeger explodes from the inside, and that's the final blow.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and even have,
I like stuff like that.
Have the cadet who built Scrapper do it, like be the one that has to do it, and like to create that kind of like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice this thing that I made that I care about very much, for the greater, just like you can create character beats with all this stuff. You can have the CEO lady kind of have her redemption. You can have moments with the different pilots where and have a pilot or two die. Like, I think that was a good choice, but it's just, this movie could have been much, much better. It had the budget. It definitely.
What
had
I would
the
have
budget.
done with the kid, the kids dying, which is terrible, is that I would have actually killed one or two of them during the attack on the Shatterdome, and to kind of really tell you, even the kids aren't safe. Good luck. And then have another one or two of them die in the in the finale, to really press home these characters are not safe.
Yeah,
because they did that with with the first one. You're expecting Pentecost to die at the end of the first one, but to take the young upstart snarky pilot with him, that I did not expect that. I was genuinely shocked when they killed him off.
Yeah. Yeah, because most conventional storytelling would have told you it would have been the older dad who would have gone. So, yeah. Anyways, it's frustrating because this could have been a cool franchise. It had everything there. It had all the elements. If it had been handled better, and we could have had a cool trilogy worth of films that I remember it as, just one of those great trilogies of sci-fi, and kind of herald as like, hey, see, you can do something original if it could be an example where if studios will take a risk with a good filmmaker and a cool idea and give it some money, that, sometimes it works out well, but instead it's just another cautionary tale of, don't bother with something original because, nobody will go to see it, when the answer usually is, well, if you made the movie better. Not that it guarantees anything, but it increases your chances. Because if this movie had been amazing, I mean, it did $300 million worldwide at the level it was at. If this movie was awesome and it had word of mouth that was amazing, this movie would have made more money than the first one.
Yeah, I agree. Um, Also, John Boyega was fresh coming off of Force Awakens. And at this time, it would have been the year after Last Jedi, and I think that hurt it also. I think that Last Jedi's backlash with this thing having already been filmed because it got delayed like 3 times. Uh, I feel like if it had come out a year earlier, it would have done much better. Um, he was kind of a safe lead to go with coming off of that. But man, if only they'd gotten a different lead, I think that it would have made a lot more money also. Nothing against John Boyega, but that was like the worst time to have a John Boyega led movie.
Yeah. Yeah, there were definitely some fan reactions to that. So, anyway, we should wrap this one up. We have yapped about this bad movie long enough, I think. But it's okay. We got good and bad movies coming up. I was just about to double check something here because I should remember this and I don't. Oh, I don't want to tease what our next one is because, well, I mean, if I tease it, it's a very different movie, very different kind of movie. And catch me if I'm wrong, you have not seen this movie before, have you? No, we're not doing that.
Wait, which movie is it?
We have Pat coming back with us next week, and we are going to be watching a 80s movie that is a personal favorite of mine. It's quite epic, and it is
that bad.
About as different of a film as you can get from this. And I'm not sure you've seen it yet. I think that you need to do a little research on this one, or if you have seen it, you don't know it very well. So I'm looking forward to this.
Okay. Well, I will do some research and find out what it is and not spoil it. Everybody just has to come back next time.
Here's the tease. The main actor and the main movie star of this movie is not the main character. He's not. Well, no, he is the main character. He's not the hero, which is something that I love. And if you haven't seen it, I'm looking forward to see what you think of that.
Oh, I know what this is.
Yes. He's not the hero, and that's one of the best parts of the movie. So, with that, we'll catch you guys next week with that film.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for putting up with me, and I hope that you didn't follow along at the same time, because I don't want anybody to have to go through that.
Good night, everybody.
There's doors and corners, kid. If you don't clear the room, if you don't come in slow,